Great, thanks. Thanks, Modi. So just background on me, I'm a biochemist and geneticist by training, and been on the biotech side almost 25 years. First 10 years in business development at a company called Dyax in Cambridge that developed many drugs you know about, like Humira and many antibodies in the market today. We took 2 drugs all the way to FDA approval in a rare genetic disease. So my next 10 plus years have been developing drugs for very rare diseases. These are companies I've been founder and CEO of, backed by venture capital groups like Third Rock Ventures and F Prime Capital and VenBio and Pivotal Bio Ventures and others. My Third Rock company was called Lotus Tissue Repair. It was maybe one of the quickest exits in biotech. We were only 20 months. We closed our Series A in, I think, June 2011, and were acquired January 2013 by Shire. It was for a very rare disease called epidermolysis bullosa. If you Google butterfly children, you'll see some really horrible pictures. These kids are born with very fragile skin, and you touch them and their skin falls off. I got to know Alex Silver, whose son is affected by this condition. He's a hedge fund guy here in New York. And he really pioneered venture philanthropy. His foundation in New York, they raise 10 million every year to an event at MoMA or Christie's. And they invest in companies like mine that are developing drugs for very rare diseases that traditional institutional firms don't really focus on. And it's amazing how that strategy of venture philanthropy has paid off. There are now 2 approved drugs for that condition. There's 41 clinical trials, and all of them started with that venture philanthropy backing. So I'm going to tell you about Sonodynamic Therapy, a totally new way to treat cancer. And Norm Friedland's going to follow up on a panel later on talking about return on mission funding. And it's really, I think, a very clever way to fund companies like ours. What I'm going to tell you is a story in a rare pediatric brain tumor with this new way to treat cancer, but it's really a platform to expand into all cancer, okay? And it sounds quite ambitious. It was an idea only 5 years ago, but now we have actually clinical data showing that we can treat people with cancer non-invasively without any significant side effects. Sounds too good to be true, right? But we actually have data to prove this. Marty told you all about the science, so I don't need to talk about it.
I had a B in biology in high school.
Hey, well done. This is a drug-device combination. The drug you see at the top of there, it's called ALA. All of us in this room make it every day. We make about 300 milligrams of it every day. So it's a nutrient that our bodies need. And we needed to make something called heme that you might remember from high school biology you need for hemoglobin, but you actually also needed to make a protein in your mitochondria to transport oxygen. So every cell that needs oxygen needs our drug. And we're combining that drug, as Marty said, with an ultrasound device that activates the drug. And the device that you see at the bottom is what we use for brain tumors. What you see behind here is the MRI machine, and the patient gets an intravenous infusion of the drug. You wait about 6 hours, and then they lie down on the table over here with their head in this helmet over here, and that's how they receive the ultrasound. The adults are actually awake during the procedure. The children are put under mild anesthesia because they wiggle too much in the MRI. And what we've shown over the last few years is that this is really an outpatient therapy. We can treat patients once a month to keep their tumor at bay and extend survival. And I'll show you some of the data in our pediatric brain tumor clinical trial. We've shown over the past few years that we can target the tumor and kill the tumor without affecting normal healthy cells. And that, all of us know people who've had cancer treatment with radiation, chemotherapy, and you know about those side effects, right? So here, because we're really giving someone a nutrient that your body already makes, we're just giving it in as a drug in pharmacological doses, and we're treating it with ultrasound that by itself, neither of these two components have any side effects. And together, we haven't seen any side effects. So we've been able to repeatedly treat these kids with pediatric brain tumors once monthly without any significant side effects. And because the drug is needed to make heme, there's no way the tumor can become resistant. That's a big differentiator against everything that's gone before. People get resistant to radiation, they get resistant to chemotherapy drugs, but here the drug is required by tumors to grow, so they cannot become resistant. There's no other way to make heme other than through our drug.
I'm sorry, so tumors require heme to grow.
That's right. So that's what you see over here. Actually, all cells require heme. The only way to make heme is through our drug called ALA. So I sort of simplified the cartoon over here. So this ALA is taken up by all cells, they make heme. When you add iron to this compound called PP9 that's made from ALA, you get heme. Normal cells have a well-regulated heme metabolism. They take up enough drug to make heme. But tumor cells take up about 50 times more ALA than normal cells, just because they're growing so quickly. And they run out of iron, so they're unable to make heme. And they accumulate the precursor, which is this compound called protoporphyrin 9. And that's the basis of the selectivity of our technology, is tumor cells accumulate this compound called PP9. And why it's shown in pink is if you shine a blue light onto a cell that's accumulated PP9, it fluoresces pink. Okay? So the bottom line is that normal cells take up our drug, they make heme as they should in a well-regulated manner. Tumor cells, because they're growing so quickly, take up 50 times more and accumulate this pink stuff. And what you see in this slide is that lots of tumors take up a lot of our drug called ALA and accumulate the PP9 that's made from ALA. And it's hard to read. There are brain tumors like glioblastoma and meningiomas. There's liver cancer, ovarian cancer, uterine cancer, stomach, bladder, and so on. And as Marty said, we just got a $62 million award to develop our technology in blood cancers. This is a multiple myeloma, and you can see the pink cells, blood cells glowing here compared to control. So this is a universal phenomenon. Essentially, we're targeting the gluttony of tumors to grow. A very different approach than what chemotherapy has used before, where you have to target some cell surface receptor or some enzyme or something like that. This is targeting a fundamental need of cancer to grow. So it's a totally different way.
CAR T? CAR T kind of targets as well, or?
No, CAR T is more of an immunotherapy.
Okay.
So you're provoking the body's immune system to attack cancer. Yes.
Mark, hi, Eric. So if ALA occurs in the body and is activated in the body already,
yes.
Why do you need ultrasound to activate it? Is that because the iron depletion, because of there's so much ALA?
Yeah, that's exactly right. You need to give pharmacological levels of ALA. So, we have about 300 milligrams a day. We're giving about 10 times that.
Got it.
So we're essentially feeding the tumor cells more of the stuff that they need that we can activate.
And the body can't do that on its own because of the depletion of the iron. It can't get to that 3,000 milligram.
Yeah, so the body is not making the nutrient for tumor cells.
Right.
There's not enough. So what we're doing is just boosting the ability of tumor cells to take it up. And as Marty said, this phenomenon has been known in dermatology. My co-founder developed a cream formulation of the same drug, ALA. You put it onto your basal cell carcinoma, your actinic keratosis. It's taken up by the tumor cells, not by normal skin cells. And then you shine a blue light activates the drug, kills it, doesn't affect normal cells, because normal cells don't accumulate the pink stuff.
Can it treat other dermatological illnesses, like not cancer, but like, reaction to drugs, like that cause rashes or like?
No, because those are not tumors. So this is unique to cancer.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's more than like an inflammatory reaction. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, so that's a complete cash award, cash grant that your company received. The other question was, what are the use of proceeds of the $62 million?
Before that, can you talk about the prior grant you received as well?
Yeah. So it's pretty amazing because we've got awards from the National Cancer Institute. So we've got 10 million already that we're spending right now. About 6 of that has come from the National Cancer Institute and the FDA, to their orphan grant program. And the other 4 came from the Ivy Foundation. which was essentially a gift. The Ivy Foundation, not related to IvyFON, is started by Benjamin and Catherine Ivy, started by Catherine Ivy, actually, after Ben died of a glioblastoma. And I think they had a mutual fund, the Ivy Funds, and Mrs. Ivy started this foundation in Phoenix and endowed the Barrow Brain and Spine Institute in Phoenix with over $100 million to start the Ivy Brain Tumor Center. And I cold called her when we were starting this program, and she returned my call the next day and said, oh, you need to meet with the director of the Ivy Brain Tumor Center, who's a neurosurgeon who, you know, in the incestuous world of biotech had worked with my co-founder 15 years earlier on this drug in brain tumors. So he totally got it. And Mrs. Ivy essentially funded the first in-man clinical trial of sonodynamic therapy. So they bought an ultrasound device and we manufactured the drug. They treated 10 patients with recurrent glioblastoma and showed that in only 4 days you can kill the tumor.
Wow.
Yeah, and that work's going to be published this year in Science Translational Medicine. So based on that, we've raised, maybe I'm jumping ahead here, but we raised about 25 million from family offices, high net worth individuals. And with that, we're running our phase 2 trials right now.
Can you disclose any of the family offices?
Yeah, so we've had, so the Ivy Foundation obviously was one of them. And then we've had a couple groups here in New York, one called Collie Capital and the other called Highline Capital. There's a London group called Breakoff Capital. And then we've had a number of investment banker friends, biotech CEOs. They're all pretty sophisticated life science investors. But institutional investors feel that brain tumors are, I quote, a graveyard indication. You know, we've heard sort of, and they don't quite, you know, get the differentiation. They very much get the science, and they're very excited about the blood cancer work that's funded by the federal grant and by bladder cancer, which is where we're going into next. So the plan right now is we're raising a Series C to take our pediatric brain tumor trial all the way to an FDA approval through what's called an accelerated approval process. And you'll see why, actually, maybe I'll get there. But the use of funds for the 62 million, the first 12 is dedicated to preclinical studies and device development. And then the next 50 is for clinical trials. So I'm going to skip this slide. This is just a mechanism that's very well understood. Multiple independent labs have published data showing that when ultrasound activates the protoporphyrin 9, the pink stuff you saw on the previous slide, you get reactive oxygen species that are made that blow up the tumor. It doesn't affect normal cells because normal cells don't accumulate the pink stuff. So here's how we're thinking about this. We really think of sonodynamic therapy as a platform. We're starting in this rare pediatric brain tumor called DIPG. I'll talk about that. And we'll have investigator-sponsored trials, that's what IST is, in glioblastoma, meningiomas, and something called diffuse midline gliomas. And you can see the incidence over here, that the idea is we're starting in a very small population to get proof of concept because we can rapidly get to FDA approval. All these leukemias and myelomas here are funded by the, non-dilutively, by the federal grant. And then we've developed a device here for bladder cancer. So we're looking for our Series C to fund this program going all the way to an approval, some work in bladder cancer, and then continue this work in blood cancers non-dilutive. This is just a summary of the grants that we've received to date from the NIH and FDA, Ivy Foundation. And the reason we're being cryptic on the federal agency is we're going to have a press release in about 6 weeks, and they want us to hold off on who it is. So I'm going to talk about our first clinical proof of concept in this rare pediatric brain tumor called diffuse intrinsic pontine glioma, or DIPG. There are only about 300 to 400 cases a year. My background's been in a lot of different rare genetic diseases. And typically, our experience has been that these are misdiagnosed and underdiagnosed until there's a therapy for a rare condition. So it's probably more common. These kids usually are diagnosed because they have double vision and they have problems walking. I had a parent recently tell me she noticed her child they were skiing and the child kept falling, and she thought, that's weird, this child really skis well. So they took her in. She also was complaining of headaches and double vision, and she had an MRI, and they had a brain tumor diagnosed. So they essentially told, go home and make memories, because the only treatment today is radiation, and the radiation is so toxic, it usually leaves these kids partially paralyzed. Oh. And you can see the steroid effects of steroids on these kids. So this is like, believe it or not, the same child before treatment with radiation and steroids and after radiation and treatment with steroids. It's really a tragic condition. We are treating these kids after the radiation and steroids because that's the ethical thing to do.
So what's the cost of treatment today?
With radiation and steroids? Mm-hmm. It exceeds $100,000 because these kids have to be hospitalized for a lot.
And the recurrence of the brain cancer is 100%.
Yeah, these tumors are currently untreatable. You cannot operate in this area of the brain called the pons where the tumor occurs because it's responsible for breathing and heart rate and balance and blood pressure. And so by definition, it's inoperable. If you operate there, you kill the child. So it's really, I started here because as you'll see, we have a meaningful clinical effect here. We're only going to have 18 patients in this clinical trial. And we've been meeting with FDA often. We've got what's called orphan drug designation and fast track designation from the FDA. And the FDA has been incredibly supportive of us getting to an accelerated approval. We're currently treating patients at Children's National in DC, UCSF, and Nicholas Children's Hospital in Florida. This year, we'll be opening up NYU, Duke, Cook's Children in Dallas, and MD Anderson. So we started treating patients just once, but we learned very quickly that we need to treat them once monthly to keep their tumors at bay. We've already seen tumor regression, but what I want to share with you are two things. One is the extension in survival, okay? Because that's what FDA has told us is the clinical outcome we need for an approval. Okay, so just to orient you here, this dashed line down the middle is the current median survival with radiation and chemotherapy. Okay, that's what that publication showed. 0 means when the child was diagnosed, and 22 months is as long as the current child, the child who's longest from the trial has been alive. And we hope to extend this further and further. Okay.
Is this a cure or it's just keeping the tumor at bay?
So we don't know. So right now it's keeping the tumor at bay. We don't know right now how long we need to treat. So our clinical trial protocol says we'll treat 12 times. And this child, as you see, the child number 2, has received 8 treatments to date. She has no obvious symptoms. I saw at a conference that she did a cartwheel. You know, like you'll never know this child has a brain tumor.
There's no side effects from the treatment?
None. So the adults actually wake up and get off the MR table and walk home. And the children are kept overnight because they receive anesthesia. So right now we've seen no side effects or no.
What's the cost of the treatment?
So it's hard to say right now because it's a clinical trial, but the actual cost at Children's National in DC is about $28,000 a treatment.
Per treatment, so it might be $300,000 a year or more.
It probably will be, yeah. So that's clinical trial cost, which is very different than commercial.
Of course, at scale.
Yeah, I mean, frankly, the drug costs pennies. Right. The ultrasound equipment is a one-time purchase. Yeah. And then there's some, kits that are used, and we'd obviously have the MR time and so on.
It's not a retrofit of an existing ultrasound tool.
No,
it's
no,
custom.
No. So I should have mentioned this. The ultrasound device we exclusively licensed from an Israeli company called Insightech. They've been around over 20 years, raised over 600 million. We're really benefiting from their many years of experience. Their special sauce is software that they've written that accounts for differences in skull size, skull thickness, bone density. All of us have different skull dimensions and bone density. And they can account so precisely for these differences that they can target a 1 millimeter by 1 millimeter area in the brain with precision. We don't need that. We're actually bathing the entire tumor with ultrasound, but we can do it so precisely. So that's our intellectual property. It's really on their licensing, their licensed intellectual property, plus really non-obvious sonication parameters we identified from our first-in-man clinical study.
I'm sorry to hog the stage, but it's patented or it's a trade secret?
Oh, no, it's patented. So there are published patents as well as issued patents from inside.
Have you reached the median rate yet?
We passed it. So it's hard to see on this screen, but there's a red line that, let me see if I can.
The little dash line, yeah.
This dash line that comes down the middle.
9 months.
That's median survival. So this kid is almost 3 times median survival. This kid is twice.
And the first person who died was too far gone, right? You had said that the tumor progressed too far.
For which one?
The first person who died?
So this first patient actually died right at median survival. And FDA had told us, go low, go slow. So we only treated half the pons, this area of the brain where the tumor occurs. 30 days later, we treated the other half. And we stopped. That's what they told us. And she passed away because she had metastatic disease. So we really learned from her. So at this point, we changed the protocol to treat monthly. And this length of time it took to treat the next patient is the time it took to amend the protocol with FDA to get ethics committee approvals. So now we're treating once monthly. That's what the purple triangles are.
So because of the safety profile, have you reached the maximum dosage, or can you increase the dosage?
Yes. So we're at the maximum dose that's safe. We can increase it, but that's actually what made our patents possible. That if you increase the energy, you actually see a worse effect. So it's a totally non-obvious, finding that, typically with drugs, you escalate the dose and you see a better and better effect until the toxicity of the drug makes it so untenable. Here we have no toxicities, but what we saw is that as we increase the energy, we actually see a worse effect because essentially what's happening is the light that's created from ultrasound is, sucking up all the oxygen. So you cannot make the free radicals that have the cell killing effect. So this is what's been interesting about this finding is that, and why, we've erected patent fences around it so other people will have a hard time competing with us.
So when you would, sorry.
Yeah, so your company manufactures the drug in your own facility or is it outsourced to another facility?
Yeah, we manufacture the drug at a contract manufacturer. Yeah.
And where is that?
In Germany. Yeah, they've been, it's typically in drug development, right? Manufacturing is a huge risk. We have none of that because our manufacturer actually makes drug in compliance with good manufacturing practices, and they have what's called a drug master file on file with FDA. So all we have to do is just buy the drug from them and register it with FDA. We developed our own drug product though, which means the presentation that actually goes into people. So we have some proprietary formulation and sterilization processes on the drug that we buy from the manufacturer.
Are you allowed to show the video or?
Oh yeah.
But before we show the video though, can you discuss, I think that when you were talking to the FDA originally on the testing, they would only take it in conjunction with the radiation treatment. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Have you moved away from that at this point?
Not yet. So
every treatment you've given has been with radiation.
Yeah. So all these kids, so if you look at 0 being the date of diagnosis, you can see we're treating them about 4 months later. That's because they get radiated as soon as they're diagnosed, the day after. And then we're treating them 4 weeks later at least.
Are you open to first line positioning?
Absolutely. So, but we cannot get there yet. So, ethically in cancer drug development, you treat patients who have failed an existing therapy. So we're treating patients 4 weeks post-radiation. The next clinical trial, we're going to randomize patients to radiation or to sonodynamic therapy, followed by radiation if needed.
I would say the ethics conversation is open for challenge because what BMS just did is first line therapy in the CAR T.
Yeah.
And that's a better outcome. You're going to get better results.
Absolutely. I'm glad you mentioned CAR T. That's the only other investigational therapy out there for this condition. The side effects are devastating. Patients receive CAR T therapy, have to be hospitalized for weeks after each infusion. Many patients die during CAR T therapy. So, the fact that we've seen no side effects here makes this, a no-brainer.
You've seen kids back in school in the same week, right?
Yeah. So the kids get treated, go back to school the next day.
So you have hundreds of potential patients.
Yes.
How do you choose which ones to treat?
Yeah. So right now the protocol is very narrow because we want to get, sort of hightail it to an FDA approval. So there's also heterogeneity among kids. we've chosen here newly diagnosed patients, at least 4 weeks post-radiation, no concomitant medications. Our protocols on clinicaltrials.gov. Yeah. And the reason is, we think, one of my previous companies, we got to an FDA approval with only 12 patients. If you can show game-changing data, and let me show you the video because you'll see.
It's astounding.
Game-changing data. Yeah. But FDA has told us the metric for approval is overall survival. We've now treated 12 patients. We have another 6 to go. And if we can get, let's say, 75% of patients beyond this dashed line, right? Even 3 months extension of survival is meaningful. We're hoping we can, to your question, can we get, how long do we need to go? We'll go as long as it takes.
How long is the treatment in
the machine?
Yeah.
It's about 45 minutes to an hour and a half, depending on how big the tumor is.
Is that per lesion?
Well, the tumors in this case are all localized to the pons in the brain. So we bathe the entire pons. Pons is about like golf ball size.
But the focused area could be expanded to hit lesions.
Oh yeah, absolutely. We can target. So the vision here is to go into brain metastases, to go into glioblastoma. That's kind of like an octopus with tentacles in the brain.
Yeah. Okay. Do you have a question?
I was just going to say, it sounds like the therapy has to be continuous. You can't stop. Is there a residual duration or no?
Yeah, we don't know. So if you look here, right, look at patient number 4, right?
We don't see it, but
no. So if you
see
right here, this patient number 4, he was the first patient in the next cohort where we dose escalated. So he was treated again, half the pons, 30 days later, the other half of the pons. He came from Israel. He went back home because he was doing so well. And the parents were like, this is great. And then sadly, after all the violence in October, he started developing symptoms and wanted to come back. So he came back actually in January, 10 months after the first treatment, and was retreated. And now he's being treated monthly.
Amazing, yeah.
So we may be able to treat once a quarter. I don't know. But right now we're taking the tack. Let's go really aggressive. This is a very aggressive disease. Treat once monthly. And we'll figure out the optimal dosing post-approval.
Where's the treatment location?
So right now it's Children's National, UCSF, Miami, and we're opening up 4 other sites, that's shown over here. We'll probably open up Children's in Seattle and UCLA as well.
There's a lot of business aspects here, but obviously you want to raise some money for this testing at the Nicholas Hospital, is that correct?
Just for the trial in general, not just at Nicholas.
Okay.
So let me just pull up this video. Sorry, the internet's being very slow. Okay, here we go.
Great.
So have a look at these videos. So this is the first child who you can see her walking into the airport in DC. And okay, there you go. So you can see her holding on for support. Her right arm is paralyzed. She has to kick her right leg forward, right? This is pre-treatment. And then you see her 1 month post-treatment where she's, moving a lot better, got better balance. Still not perfect, but, she can raise her right arm that she couldn't do before. The parents reported like her double vision was reversed. She had a crooked smile because she was paralyzed on the right side. That was normalized. This is another patient. You can see him being supported to walk over these hurdles during PT. And he's 11 years old. And here's him 1 month after receiving treatment, standing by himself and being able to kick, which he couldn't walk before properly without support. This is another child. This is before diagnosis. You can see perfectly normal. You can also see, I had to blur out his face because he's still on trial. And then post-radiation and steroids, he's almost completely paralyzed in a wheelchair. This is his Make-A-Wish trip to Disney. And then we treated him, you'll see now 3 months. So he's at 3 monthly treatments. He can stand by himself. His balance is a lot better. Still not perfect, but he can kick a ball. And we've got lots of.
So 3 months before he was in a wheelchair.
Yeah. So we treated him in November when he was in a wheelchair. He's now out. Let me just see what's in the chat. Okay. All right. So let me just.
Is this Texas that you treat?
Sorry?
In Texas?
We haven't opened up Texas yet, but we'll be opening up MD Anderson and a site in Dallas as well.
But where is this, in Florida?
So that child was treated in DC.
DC.
Yeah. And we've just started in Miami recently. So the strategy that we're going for
What
is
hospital, ma'am?
Sorry,
What hospital?
it's the Nicholas Children's Hospital. Yeah, and we just treated a kid on compassionate use at Miami Baptist as well. So the strategy is to apply for breakthrough designation. We're on track to have an approval in 2Q 2026. And during that time, the plan is to expand from this rare brain cancer to other cancers in the brain to glioblastoma and meningiomas, much larger indications, with a federal grant into blood cancers. And you can see this device is what we call a millifluidic device. So you take blood like you normally would from the subcubital vein in your arm and your elbow, and then it goes into the little device that you see there that has a little ultrasound transducers in it, goes back into it. So it's a closed loop system. The vision is that you can sit on your couch and treat your leukemia, okay, without having to go in for chemotherapy or bone marrow transplants or CAR T, you know. And then this device on the right, we've already built this device. This is a device to treat bladder, pancreatic, and other solid tumors of the abdomen. Markets are big. I'm not going to go into this. But just a quick note on funding. So we raised about 25 million to date. Norm's going to talk about return on mission funding. So we've engaged full Sky partners. Norm and his colleagues have this really clever idea on how to raise program-related investments. The instrument is a promissory note, so they can be done fairly quickly. And then we're looking to raise a Series C. We've already raised about 11 out of 15 million under convertible notes that convert into the Series C.
Can you just back up one?
Yeah.
And obviously, you're getting all this funding for the other research, and you show the number of patients. So this is the platform for all this other research.
That's right. And so all the blood cancer work is funded through the first 2 trials. Bladder, part of the Series C financing will support some work in bladder cancer. And
does this address things like childhood leukemia, things like that?
Yeah, yeah, that's what the federal grant will fund, pediatric leukemia.
Who discovered the application fits? Was it you?
No. So the original work in sonodynamic therapy came out of a Korean group. It was first published in 2012. Nobody believed it. Then a Japanese group reproduced it along with my co-founder in 2018. And the Japanese group published late 2018. My co-founder published in 2019. And we started the company in 2019.
So the patents are licensed by you for exclusive use, or you?
Yeah, so we licensed the Insight Tech patents on the device, which predate both the publications. And then we filed our own IP based on the phase 1 clinical trial. So, I mean, that's some of our IP over there. We'll send the deck around to everybody. So we have a great leadership team. And this is Stu, who did all the work in the derm space and has been, who had this idea. Ellie came to us from a public company called Novacure that developed tumor treating fields for brain tumors. And we've got a stellar scientific advisory board with both industry and academic key opinion leaders. So let me stop there and just conclude that, totally new way to treat cancer. Right now, our initial focus is in this pediatric brain tumor called the FDG. Over 70% of patients have survived beyond the median with no side effects. So that gives us, I think, the data to go to the FDA, get an accelerated approval in 2026. That really validates this as new technology. I think of this as where, antibody technologies were when I started in the business in 2000, where people, saw, wow, the science makes sense, but they weren't really commercial successes. Antibody drugs now sell billions of dollars a year. Same thing with CAR T therapy. About 10 years ago, people thought CAR T was this, wow, you're going to get the body's immune system to attack itself. And then Gilead acquired Kite for $14 billion. And now there are dozens of CAR T companies. We are the first sonodynamic therapy company, and I think we're changing the way how cancer will be treated. So we'd love to have you join us.
Last question, Norm?
So I'm a plant, just to let you know. Marty, Marty, thanks for bringing together really a great group. And what you're hearing today is absolutely revolutionary. 10 years from now, what's going to happen is you're going to go into a clinic and you're going to get scanned. Your whole body's going to get scanned, and that's going to kill every cancer cell in your body, whether it's manifested to disease or whether it's just there, because we all have it. And you're going to do this once a year, twice a year, and that's where this technology is going. So just make notes. You all were here at the Big Bang moment for literally what is going to be a totally new way of transforming cancer, because you're going to kill that cancer before it has a chance to even manifest itself. And I've spent time at the hospital in Arizona. I've spent time at the hospital in Florida. I've seen these videos. I've talked to the neuroscience, the neurosurgeons, the radiologists, the oncologists. I see these videos, I've probably seen them 100 times, but still get an incredible emotional response, because these kids are alive today. They're going to be alive tomorrow. And this is not a trivial company. This is not simply a company that's going to be treating rare diseases. You're going to be creating tremendous value for society, tremendous value for the investors. Marty, again, thank you for bringing us all together.
Yeah, great job, Mark. Thanks so much.